Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. I was listening to an analyst I like. His name is George Gammon, and he said something that kind of startled me. He said, the debt really isn't a problem. And that stopped me because the debt to me is a huge problem. He said, the real problem is government spending. And he had this analogy. He said, imagine you're walking down the street and you see the heroin addict. And the way the heroin addict has supplied his habit is he's run up his credit card bill and he owes $100,000 on his credit card. Well, if you walked up to the heroin addict and you said, hey, I'm going to pay off your credit card bill, does that really help him? And of course, the answer is no, he's still a heroin addict. Well, this is what Gammon is saying. The problem isn't the debt, it's the spending. And even if we were to pay off the debt magically today, they would just immediately start cranking up the spending again. So, with that in mind, how come he's probably right? Here's why. Two reasons. First, it's the way money is created. Money can either be created by a bank when they give you a loan. Well, when they give you a loan, you have to pay that money back. So that money is lent into existence. Government doesn't lend money into existence. Government spends money into existence, and that doesn't have to be paid back. Money that doesn't have to be paid back is very inflationary, which is the way we're invested for right now, right? But there's another reason. Government unimpeded starts to elbow out the private sector. And there's a difference between money and wealth. The private sector creates wealth. So if you spend $500,000 to build a bus that takes people to and from work for 20 years, that's a much better use of money than spending $500,000 to build a Tomahawk missile that blows up a hut in Afghanistan. And so government doesn't create wealth, but it can create money. Only the private sector creates wealth. So what's happening is the government distorts the economy. With all this spending, they distort the economy and they elbow out the private sector. And that's what we're seeing. So I want you to think about the history of the United States and how we got here. We started as an industrial powerhouse. We made steel, we made cars, we made appliances, we made stuff. And we called that industrialization. All right, we all know what happened. We moved from an industrial economy to the service economy we always talk about during the 80s and 90s. And then we moved from a service economy to what we called a financial economy, financialization, where it was all banks and interest rates and money moving, derivatives, all this fancy stuff in Wall Street world. Now we're moving past financialization into governmentalization. They might have just made that word up. Governmentalization. 7 syllables. That's a very big word for me. Probably only supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I remember that one. But otherwise, governmentalization is a very dangerous place to be in for your currency. Because not only are you taking away the wealth of the nation, but you're injecting this money straight into the economy that causes this inflation. So where are we going? Just as government is kind of schizophrenic, I think you're going to see schizophrenia in the markets going forward here. I think we're going to swing wildly from deflation expectations, inflation expectations, back and forth, all based on government policy. It's not going to be based on solid economics anymore. So buckle up. I believe we're positioned right. Inflation historically wins in this tug of war over time, but we're going to have some volatility heading forward. So brace for it, but we're still in the right stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Walt. And I think, Walt, what are you going to talk about? Snakes. Walt wants to talk about snakes. So with that, I'll turn it over to him.